Welcome to another episode of The Core. This one has been a great one, actually, because I think all of us are the beginning of the journey of this one. We're talking about navigating cybersecurity within SaaS platforms, and how do we secure it in the cloud, and just navigating that minefield of what is coming. I haven't really ever considered, or maybe I should have, maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but how all these SaaS platforms, although make our lives so much easier from an operational point of view, but actually allows our data to be accessed, whether that's from Salesforce or HubSpot or any of these great things that we use day to day, how that could actually create a big hole and allow our data to be actively available on the internet. I am delighted to have Brandon join us today. He comes from Omni, which is one of our latest partners. So I'm not going to chat anymore. I'm going to let you delve into this episode because Brandon sums this up and how important this topic is in a really great episode. Welcome to another episode of the Core podcast. I'm co-hosting with James Cunningham. Very unusual to have him in here. Hello, James. And I'm very excited because today we are talking all things about securing the cloud and SaaS platforms with our new partner, Omni. So we have a guest in today. So Brandon, would you like to introduce yourself and a bit more about you and obviously your wonderful accent because you are not from the UK?
No, I'm not. Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it. Brandon Ramasher. I'm the VP of EMEA and APJ for Omni. We're really excited to be here and partnering with the great team at Core to Cloud. I've been in the UK for the past 8 years now.
Oh, right? So you live in the UK?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So I imagined you flew in this morning. I was just thinking you don't look too jet lagged.
Yeah, no, I don't. Actually, I got my British citizenship last year, though.
Ah.
So I'm officially a Brit. But originally,
that's a good thing or a bad thing at the moment. But
no comment.
Congratulations.
No comment. I'm from Philadelphia in the United States originally. Okay. Grew up on the East Coast. Lived in California for a while. Wow. Been all over the place.
What made you move here?
I was working for another cybersecurity startup in San Francisco called OpenDNS. Yeah. Back in early 2010 to 2015ish. And at the time, we were expanding internationally, and the CEO and the CRO asked me if I wanted to move over to London to help spearhead our international expansion. And I said, absolutely, let's do this, right? So that was 8 years ago at this point. I love it over here. The people are great. Culture's good. I love to travel and experience everything that Europe has to offer. And so, it's been a great move.
So you're still based in London now?
Yeah. Yeah, based in London. Slowly relocating to Spain.
Oh, okay.
Get a little bit of nicer weather.
Yeah, a bit warmer.
Yeah.
Like that.
But the team's based all over Europe and APJ, and in today's market, you can sort of travel and do your Zoom calls and be where you need to be. And so slowly relocating to Spain for the better weather, but in London all the time.
Oh, love that.
And you've definitely learned to call football now.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. I know zero about strategy. I like to go to matches and enjoy the experience. But if you ask me what's going on, I'll know very little.
Oh, I'm the same when I go with my husband. And
normally, that's great. The amount of banter that I have when I'm out in America with people that I work with, and I'm outnumbered. Yes. It's pain. So for all the US partners that I work with, that gives me banter. Just said it.
I've been to a number of matches here, and believe it or not, the team that I've been to the most is QPR.
Really?
Yeah, I have a friend. When I moved over here at Cisco, he told me I had to be a QPR fan, so I've been to a few matches there. Yeah. Can't beat the experience.
Yeah. Proper football.
Yeah.
Proper football. Okay, so zooming from football to SaaS. So obviously I'm the least technical person in the room. So, and anyone else that might be listening to the podcast, we have a mixed audience. Could you explain to them a definition of what a SaaS platform is?
Yeah. So a SaaS platform is a cloud delivered application, right? That's delivered as a service. So historically, when you were, utilizing software in an organization, you might, get that application, you might install it locally and run it in your own IT infrastructure. And that came with all the overhead that from an operational perspective that was required, right? You'd had to constantly update it. You'd have to have resources to make sure that that server it was running on was secure. And so, operationally it was a bit more challenging, a bit more costly. back in early 2000s, maybe even late 1990s, Salesforce came around.
Yep.
Remember their early logo? It was a no software sign, so it was software in the cloud with a big X through it, right? And so they were delivering, CRM software as a cloud-based application, right? So sellers could just log into their browser and start accessing all their information. And so effectively, SaaS has morphed over the years. It used to be very simple and very specific, right? You log in, you do a couple things, very easy to use. Is delivered in the cloud, delivered through the internet, right? And then today, what's happened over the past 5-10 years or so is you've seen this change from simple, sort of use cases and SaaS applications into these large-scale platforms that are infinitely complex and infinitely configurable. And so you have your HR cloud, Workday, SAP SuccessFactors, Sage People. You have your identity clouds and things like Okta, Entra ID. You have your collaboration clouds, Microsoft 365, Google Workspace, your CRM systems like Salesforce, your IT service management systems like ServiceNow. So there's different systems and platforms under the SaaS mantra, if you will, that are just very large, very complex, and store incredibly sensitive data. And if you look at the teams that operationalize these systems, it's not like, a large organization doesn't just buy a SaaS system and turn it on in day one. While it's simpler to use and more efficient for a lot of reasons, what you'll find is a lot of these big systems still require very well thought out, designed implementation and go live phases. And so you have large teams of MSPs, administrators, developers, architects that spend quarters or years implementing these large systems for big organizations. And then once that system goes live, it doesn't stop there. You're constantly customizing it in order to meet the business requirements of the organization.
Adding people to it.
Changing the look, changing the feel, changing the experience, delivering outcomes to the business, making sure data is going into it and coming out in the right places. So SaaS has really grown into this. We think about it today at App Omni. We think about it as the new business operating system. Every line of business, whether you're in finance using NetSuite, sales using Salesforce,
marketing, HubSpot. We've got loads of lovely AI things that interesting when we started running it internally. Phil thought about everything from a technical and then started thinking operation. And I was like, oh, what about HubSpot? Started listing some of ours. And he was like, why would I put them on? And I was like, it's got all our data on it. He was like, I hadn't even thought about your systems. So it's like much more, all our departments are becoming closer and closer, and we're all punching different holes in because there's loads of new AI SaaS platforms from finance to marketing, can plug into your calendar and move it all around, and they're really easy to spin up.
Absolutely.
And genuinely not that expensive.
Yeah, I mean, that's the concept of shadow IT, right? It's that organizations will have their sanctioned apps and their unsanctioned apps, and typically in a sanctioned environment, maybe things that are sitting behind your IDP like Okta, you might have 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 sanctioned SaaS applications that go through your traditional vendor reviews. Right? At some point, someone in the organization says, hey, we're going to buy this application from this vendor, and we're going to do a diligence on that organization and this application to make sure that it fits our requirements. And that's sanctioned SaaS. That's great. And then you have the whole concept of shadow IT, which is I'm a developer, I'm a salesperson, whoever, and I like this application, and I'm going to go log in, swipe a credit card, and turn it on, and it's going to bypass that entire review process. And that's one of the risks that we see in SaaS of many.
I see a massive change in businesses at the moment because we've been working with some of the largest banks, and you're seeing so many retail shops, physical locations getting shut down now, and all that investment's going towards building into retail-based applications really for consumers. It's interesting because it's just widely used. You see lots of organisations. We're working with quite a large development house, and they have got thousands of developers just literally building apps every day. So that AppSec, all the way through to live production, leaves some gaps, doesn't it? Yeah.
Every company's a software company today.
Yeah.
Right? That's digital transformation at its finest.
Yeah.
Everyone has an army of developers. They're building applications in-house, or they're buying them from B2B SaaS vendors, right? The big players out there, the Oracles, the Microsofts, the Salesforces of the world. But whether you're building or buying or doing both, right? Typically, you're delivering them as SaaS today, whether you're running those in your AWS VPC or whether you're running those as a third-party service like from Salesforce or insert SaaS vendor here. Typically, those applications are delivered as SaaS to the end customer.
So as we become more digitalized, what's the impact from a cybersecurity perspective? Because we're all trying to be more connected. Yeah. We're trying to operate more smoothly. I know even internally, we're trying to make data work harder from us. What are we learning? How does it plug into HubSpot? How does it plug into Salesloft? How does it plug into LinkedIn and SalesNav? So what is that creating from a cyber perspective?
It's crazy, creating a different dynamic for security professionals and security teams to be aware of. Right? It's the applications are shifting in terms of how they're deployed, which means the attack surface is different, which means that the tooling that's required to secure it must shift, and the mentality must shift as well, right? It's no longer about securing your network and your data center where these applications are running. Of course, you still need to do that. A lot of companies still have that. But as a lot of your applications shift to the cloud and that abstraction layer comes into place, right? SaaS is effectively incredibly abstracted, data centers, if you will, right? If you look at the shared responsibility model, the end user is only responsible for how they, configure that system, the users they granted access to, and the data that lives within those applications and gets transferred. Everything underneath that stack, from a technology perspective and even a physical security perspective, is owned by the vendor. So it's extremely abstract, right? And so the security dynamics that have shifted along with that mean that you have these many different more applications running with different use cases owned by different teams, right? And so you have this lack of subject matter expertise.
Okay.
Right? And so you need to build, either some automation to build that subject matter expertise to understand how to secure these systems, or you need someone, partner or tooling to help you achieve that. If you speak to a SOC analyst or an IT security person and you ask them like, hey, how does Workday work? Right? Or how does, tell me the inner workings of GitHub, right? Odds are they have very little understanding of the inner workings of those applications and what they need to do to secure those. So, the subject matter expertise dynamic is very real, and that compounds when you don't have any security resources to begin with. So the problem that there's not a lot of security resources is further compounded because of the fact that these applications are so different and there's so many of them, right? And then you have to think about not just how do I secure access to these systems, right? How do I stick something in front of that application to make sure that people are authenticating properly into it that say that they are? But there's also the concept of inside-out security. Just like everything else, you need to understand the inner workings of the application. What system settings come natively within that application that are similar to hardening, authentication, encryption, AppSec-related controls?
Do you think we make a lot of assumptions of like when we buy a SaaS, or we buy, and I'm probably naive to this, like I buy a HubSpot, plug it in, do that, and you kind of make some assumptions that, well, of course that wouldn't do that, or why would that be an automatic thing? Or I know with Microsoft there's a lot of things of configuration when people have gone, oh no, you need to turn that on, which you would think would be on. Why wouldn't that be on? Do you think we rely on these technologies to default do things and we're not educated enough on that?
That's one of the big challenges, right? Is the SaaS is magically secure is what I think a lot of people are left to believe. They know that they need to do things to secure their VPCs and their infrastructure as a service environments. When it comes to SaaS, either they don't know that the applications exist there, or they think that for some reason it's very simple because again, it's so abstracted away. And so, I think that, absolutely, it's either out of sight, out of mind, or it's a lack of resources and understanding. But you really have to allocate, some time and find the right partners to make sure that you're hardening these applications that store some of your crown jewels as it relates to data, just as you would anything else in your attack surface, in your IT stack. It's your responsibility. And if you're not taking steps to make sure that you're configuring and monitoring these systems correctly, we've seen it time and time again in the real world, odds are, bad things can happen, either due to user-introduced misconfigurations, data out on the internet like an S3 bucket, or external attackers, increasingly targeting SaaS platforms because they follow the data.
Do you think because it's a new thing in a new area to attack, do you have to be that sophisticated at the moment to get in? Like, firewalls have come in, so we've known where those gaps are. the SaaS piece, like why we're having this podcast is educating people more about it. Do you think actually it's quite an easy way in at the moment because we're all a little bit blindsided by it?
Yeah, there's a lot of people, it's not overly complicated, right?
If you want to get in.
So what we found with our, App Omni has an offensive security research team called AO Labs. And what we found across multiple large systems, and our research is public on this, is that it's very easy to misconfigure your SaaS systems, some of them, especially the ones that have, use cases where you're opening up portals to the internet for external type users. It could be a ticketing system, it could be a job application system, but as you open up parts of that application to the external internet, it's incredibly easy to misconfigure that and actually expose significant amounts of sensitive private data along with that, the stuff that you do want to expose. So we see time and time again that sometimes you're just shooting yourself in the foot, right? So is it easy for external attackers to get in? Depends on how you're configuring the system. We've seen it not be all that challenging. You look at some of the Okta events where it's social engineering in order to get to an admin account, compromise that admin account. And then, once you have that admin account, follow the kill chain, you can escalate privilege. You can start moving from application to application as you would other systems. But what we see is the biggest risk today, in my opinion, is the aspect of an organization buying a big system, putting sensitive data in there, misconfiguring it to the point where that sensitive data is available for anyone on the internet without any authentication or login required. If they know what parts of the system to query, what tables to call, what APIs to call, it'll respond back with all sorts of sensitive information.
And you've seen that?
All the time. It's published, it's public. Brian Krebs has written a lot of articles on this. Salesforce Community Cloud, it's very common. There's some public research out there. ServiceNow had some issues around it. We've seen it in other systems. We see it in proof of concepts all the time.
Have you seen any examples of where sensitive data, whether it's our patient data, has been stored on a SaaS technology that obviously the information could be found?
So I mentioned the Brian Krebs article earlier. So Brian Krebs is a big investigative journalist, very well known, fantastic blog online. And the one that he wrote in April of 2023 was titled something along the lines of many Salesforce sites are leaking public data. And on the cover of the article is a picture of a big healthcare system in the United States. And so the answer is absolutely yes. We've seen it personally, privately. We've seen it documented publicly. The types of data that are stored in these systems can be incredibly sensitive. It can be your source code in GitHub, right? It can be your HR data in Workday or Salesforce. It can be your entire attack surface information in ServiceNow from an IT asset management perspective. And so the short answer is yes. From our experience doing POCs and some of these big systems, we can see sensitive data available on the internet in anywhere from 50 to 70% of assessments that we run, right? And we're not talking about mom and pop shops. We're talking about the Global 2000, the largest companies out there in the world. We see this time and time again. And again, it speaks to the complexity of these systems. These aren't just easy systems to use. There's a reason why some of the largest GSIs in the world have consulting businesses for a Salesforce or a Workday or a ServiceNow that have 10,000 consultants and they do $1 billion a year in services revenue. It's not because these systems just work magically. It's because you need a team of professionals to try to get it right, and it's really hard.
And with all that data out there, is there any regulations or things that are coming on? Is there anything that control, like we obviously have seen regulations, things that have come across. We see frameworks coming across for like DORA recently. Is there anything that's in this world yet, or do you see it coming? Or
we're seeing it increasingly come, and I don't want to, I can't say that I'm a compliance expert, but things like the NCSC coming out with their prescriptive guidance. In my opinion, it's been the best guidance to date on how to use SaaS securely. That was released earlier this year, and it's a pretty well detailed document on things to think about when using SaaS securely. And I think their blog post on it is it's not who you choose, it's how you use it. Okay. Right? You need to focus on how you use it and less on how you choose it. They're both important. But you're seeing NIS2, NIS2. You're seeing DORA. Some of those focus on financial services organizations. Some of those focus on connected applications in the SaaS ecosystem. But different organizations and regulatory bodies are starting to get more involved. I don't think it's there quite yet, but in the coming years, you're going to see a more and more of an emphasis on this as the authoritative bodies start to, in my opinion, wake up a bit and start to understand that this data is sitting out there in all these third-party systems, and it's increasingly hitting the wire in terms of bad press.
Third-party risk is massive, isn't it? It's, Obviously, we provide a service for third-party risk. Just listening there is obviously really this data is sat within those third-party applications. There's just so much risk associated to third parties right now, and I think there's massive scrutiny within these organisations. Typically, we're working with information governance, risk and compliance teams on that piece of work, but I can see how it crosses over certainly with the work that we're doing with you guys. Really,
here's where it gets a little bit even crazier. Is everyone's aware of third party risk, and there's tool out there to help an entire programs out there to, as I talked about earlier, how do you select that vendor and what governance reviews do you put them through? And that's good, right? That's a sanctioned application that's gone through the process of being deployed in an organization. Fantastic. One is a lot of companies stop looking at it after that process. Now we're back to the concept of third-party risk. In the SaaS ecosystems, there's the concept of fourth-party risk. Right,
and further, surely,
for sure. But you're using, so let's say that, again, let's say SAP SuccessFactors is your third party. SAP is your third party. SuccessFactors is your HR cloud that you're using, or maybe we talk about something, like again, go back to a Salesforce, and you go to the Salesforce App Exchange.
There's so many that you can plug in.
Thousands of applications. Those are all fourth parties. I mean, developer applications.
Even ours, if you think we've got our HubSpots, our SalesLoft, our LinkedIn, all of them. And we're small, like we're not a big, so I can't even imagine when you start being
we haven't got thousands of people.
No, like a footsie, what like I can't even imagine the configurations or things you're opening up, or
you're not even reviewing anything, right? You're effectively breaking off access to a fourth party system and developer and giving it a set of permissions and access to data. Most of the time, it's your end users. that are going to the App Store and just saying, I'm going to plug this in, right? No review, no nothing. We see about 250 unique fourth-party connected apps per large production environment when we do assessments. Most of them haven't been reviewed or understood. And if you think about the way that those connect, it's not the same as a user authenticating. In a SaaS system, you can, you have session intervals and lockout durations, right? And that's one of the controls that we monitor. It's, hey, before we force this person to re-authenticate, how long do they have before they're forced to re-authenticate? And that's great. That's important. When you think about these fourth-party connected apps, they're effectively connected in perpetuity for the most part. That session doesn't expire, right? That access token stays there forever most of the time until someone goes in and refreshes it or rips it out themselves. So you have this perpetual connection to a fourth-party system, and what we've seen in the wild multiple times, and we'll continue to see it more and more, is attackers are targeting those large applications that are plugged in everywhere. We just saw it a couple months ago with ClickSense, the big BI tool that a lot of people use. Attackers compromise ClickSense, and by attacking the ClickSense infrastructure, they're able to then get their way into all of those connected environments that were in large organization systems. Same with MoveIt, right? The MoveIt compromise. We saw that we saw on-prem servers of MoveIt connecting to production environments of SaaS systems like M365. We notified our customers when we saw that stuff, right? It's going to be on-prem connected to SaaS systems, but point is these systems can be compromised. They're plugged into your big SaaS platforms. And if you're not monitoring that, it is an attack vector right into your production data.
Like all little clicking on and all like just little holes and just breaking into your network. We've identified the challenges. I'm imagining if someone hasn't even started thinking about this, might be feeling a little bit overwhelmed. If you were about to open this can of worms or start looking into this in your own business and you're sat here listening, what would you say were just some foundational best practices to do right away, other than just obviously reaching out to you guys? But if you were going in anywhere, what would you first of all check?
Tooling aside, build an inventory, build a risk register, understand your assets, right? Understand what you have, what's sanctions, what's not sanctioned, right? Just like anything else in your IT stack, it's important to know what you have, but not just know what you have. Go through the process of risk rating that from a complexity and a data sensitivity perspective. Not all SaaS systems are the same. You need to be able to understand where your most sensitive data is, where it's at most risk, and then focus your effort from a SaaS security posture management perspective on saying, these are my most business critical applications, storing my most sensitive data with the most complexity. I want to go lock these down first, right? So it's really about understanding what you have and addressing it. Now, part of that, and this is something I always tell customers, is go build a relationship with the owners of these SaaS systems. When we're talking to customers, and it's sort of the Wild West at the moment, sometimes security organizations know who's responsible for running these big systems, and other times they don't really have any relationship or know who the people are. And so if you don't have cadence, a regular cadence, and that relationship and understand what they're doing and how they're doing it to some extent, how are you ever supposed to help them from a security perspective? These are administrators of SaaS systems. They're not security trained. They need guidance from security. And if you don't know who those people are, and you don't have their relationship, how are you ever supposed to, properly secure that system?
Developers don't typically like conversations with cyber people.
Nope.
From development all the way through, from kind of pre-build
it's like marketing
to live. It's like
it's friction.
It's all the relationships, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a
but
lot of
they
friction.
feel like it's restricting creativity, right? If they want to do something and it's going to work great and this, and then someone comes in and
they're in their bubble.
Yeah.
People are in their bubble, and then when you're turning around and saying, "Hey, wait a minute," you need to think about
that's
this.
not secure.
It could be a roadblocker.
Yeah, if you like, but this could look really great, or the app's going to do this, and it means there's functionality, and someone comes in and goes, "Well, yeah, but it's I get it. It's creative, user friendly, making it the best app experience." Where someone's saying, "Yeah, that's great, but your data might leak." It's got to be a bit of a balance.
Exactly, but then it becomes a game of sort of hot potato in terms of security responsibility, right? It's something bad happens, and then who's responsible, right? Well, the app teams aren't security trained, so they don't know that if they flip this switch in the system that maybe their application works better, but they're making their application less secure, right? And then the security team might not even know who the app owners are or how they're using the system. And so there needs to be some levels of discussion and responsibility and sort of agreement from a business risk perspective on who's responsible for what. And, in my opinion, if we see that the security team is trying to get the SaaS owners to play ball and, want to secure their system more, but they're not willing to for whatever reason, application owners have a lot of power in a business, there should be some sort of business risk transition process where the application owners are then saying, yeah, we will be responsible if something else happens. Security did approach us. The business didn't want to, do it for X, Y, and Z reasons. We're going to accept the risk if something happens, right? So there needs to be almost that agreement around business risk as well.
It's buy-in
not for every
everyone,
app,
isn't it? Everyone should be buying into it. Everyone should.
They should,
Yeah.
but we know that's not the case. We know that selfishly speaking, I wish that everyone did, right? Make my life a lot easier. But we know that's not the case, and there's limited resources, and so, it just comes down to if your business is going to invest heavily in an application, a system, a network, a new office, you need to have security protocols around it, whether you're a small business or a big business. And it's really just about understanding what's happening in your organization.
And do you think training, like cyber training, education, can help with that? Or do you think this is like a bigger piece and it has to come down to like encryption and how we authenticate? Or is it a mixture, or there's no magic?
I think it's a mix. I think it's all the above, right? I think a sound security program incorporates all of that. There's going to be the human element, right? But even with all the training in the world, if something is, I always say that this is not a human solvable problem, right? If a system has thousands of settings and really insane role-based access controls and data access models, it's inevitable that you're going to slip up. It's inevitable someone's going to plug in these other applications, right? So you need to have a mix of both. People should be trained, but security needs to take leadership and sort of help these non-security professionals better control their systems. And that's why App Omni does what it does, right? We deliver automation across a wide range of systems to help organizations standardize on a security layer for SaaS, right? You don't need to be an expert in each of these different systems. It's not feasible. It's not possible. You need a program and you need a sound tooling like ours together to help deliver automation and expertise that you wouldn't be able to otherwise get. It's just not possible. So you need a bit of everything.
You mentioned some key, like MoveIt, obviously being a SaaS breach. Is there any other famous or breaches that maybe not everyone's aware that came through a SaaS platform?
Yeah, I mean, some of the most notable ones is, Okta's a great company. They've had a couple, they've been in the news a few times over the past year, right? That's been a really big one. A number of different events where, support agencies or MSPs using the solution have been compromised through social engineering. You've seen a lot from what I call fourth-party risk or supply chain in SaaS. You've seen Circle CI, ClickSense, a bunch of these sort of developer tools being targeted because, again, they're sort of an easy way into a lot of different environments. As I mentioned before, Salesforce and ServiceNow have been in the news.
Yeah.
For every one or two that you hear publicly mentioned, there's many more that are not made public. Whenever you read these press releases and it typically says, hey, they won't name names, but they'll say a third-party system was compromised. Yeah. Most of the time, that's a SaaS system. Maybe not every time, but a lot of the time, if they're calling it a third-party system, they don't want to name the vendor for confidentiality reasons. But usually, it's a SaaS compromise of some type.
And do you have the positive end of the story? So obviously, we can't necessarily name things that your customers, but have you seen things that Apomni have come in and been able to support or stop that from escalating?
100%. Yeah. We've been able to help customers, very large customers in very sensitive environments, identify very, sensitive, wide-ranging data exposures. Identify that, and then not just identify, but understand if that data has been targeted or exfiltrated. So we've helped a lot of customers do that. We've helped customers achieve stronger security posture in general. But in parallel to doing that, we've helped a lot of application teams deploy faster and become more efficient. So there's a lot of talk in the world around DevSecOps. Yeah. In some of these big systems, CI/CD tools are used to deploy. Right? In a large Salesforce environment, you'll have dev environments, you'll have staging environments, UAT environments, you'll promote in a pipeline, an automated pipeline. And so once we start talking to the application owners, they can see that we can actually embed across some of these different pipelines and help them automate security scans as they promote. And in doing so, we're helping them move faster. So it's not, a lot of it is helping customers achieve greater security posture, identify data exposures, and better monitor their systems for external attacks. But on the flip side, we're also helping application teams move faster and deploy more securely.
We've seen it firsthand with customers that we've supplied up Omni with real massive value quite quickly. I think it's so important because there's only so many tools you can really supply to organizations. Because there's massive alert fatigue. I think at the moment we're so focused on technology that's going to bring great value without too much resource dependency.
Yeah.
And I see that massively with App Omni, seen it massively from customers already, successful deployments. I'm amazed by some of the conversations that we're already having with some of the largest businesses in the world around this particular topic. Because it's not really being thought about right now. It's big open space that's been nicely.
Very large CISO told us that App Omni is like turning on a light in a room that I've never looked in bore.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's a little bit scary.
Yeah, that's mad, isn't it?
Right, but that's it.
It's a great ad, though.
It is. You know, it is.
Note that down, Josh.
You shouldn't have said that.
It is though, isn't it? It's great.
Be all over everything.
Social.
LinkedIn.
We with my light.
Twitter.
X.
X.
The X.
Is that what it's called?
I think it's X now.
Yeah. Shows how much I know.
He's on trend.
Yeah.
That's right.
I've just gone viral.
Yeah. Yeah. I've always wanted to go viral.
I've just gone
I
viral.
can ride your coattails.
Right now. Joss always is sat there just chuckling away. There's just a few little pointers, some real value add that I add into these podcasts.
He's just thinking, what can I slice and dice and turn into content?
What are these guys talking about?
I know.
He's so educated now. He's been on this podcast for was it 2 years now? I think you're just as technically sound as I am now.
I think Joss might also go viral after this.
Yeah, just in the corner. Just in the corner's gone viral. We are gonna have to interview you one day. You're the weird man in the corner that no one knows who is.
I really don't do these a lot, and I think I often get to a stage where I like to wind them up a little.
Well, last time you came on, I said you were cancelling the podcast just for all our delight. So
this is the last podcast.
That was the last podcast. The last one he did, saying he was cancelling it. So
is this the first one since it was cancelled?
Yeah, it's been.
No, I've still kept going. He's just not aware. It was because we were giving him the stats of how many business podcasts normally die within the first 18 months, and we were coming out to our 2-year anniversary, and he was like, well, we might as well cancel it now then. And I was like, no, that's not what I was saying. But yeah,
still in the budget line. I see.
It is
probably a different name.
Well, I'm happy to come back. I could be a supporting character.
Yes, I'd love that. You can be another co-host with me. I learned so much. Like, this is really good for me. It's like market research constantly, but it's coming direct from the vendors, from the customers, from other people in walks of life. Yeah, I learn the most from doing this. So is there anything else for anyone else listening? First of all, we've talked about Apomni, but if someone wanted to look, obviously we can reach out directly to our website. We do have a landing page under our technologies, and you can speak to any of our technical team or sales. But if anyone wanted to have a look at you guys directly, where would they go, and where's the best thing to check things out? Come
to your friends at QuarterCloud. Mm-hmm. And then obviously check out our website. We have some great technical research and some great blog posts. This is a new market, a new space. And so we do a lot of work trying to educate people to understanding what SaaS security posture management is and what it's not as well. And so, check out our content. We have some great stuff. Come to your friends at QuarterCloud. And just for everyone out there, right, just to summarize, the entire concept of Apomni and SSPM is that you have business critical assets that are delivered as SaaS applications that store and transfer highly sensitive data. By all measures, you must monitor these systems continuously because they store this data and they're constantly changing, they're state shifting, right? And so Apomni automates that process across large, diverse environments, giving security teams the visibility and the governance that they need to ensure they stay hardened and secure, and giving application teams the ability to move faster, more confidently, more securely. Nicely put, and a good conclusion to the podcast. James, do you have anything to add?
Just excited about the partnership, the growth, the focus. Great support. It's coming, and I think, I'm really confident in terms of the technology. The conversations I've had with the CISOs that quite well connected with, and the general kind of customer feedback. As obviously we do kind of a bake-off internally, and with our tech team in terms of validating the solution, but being able to speak to these CISOs, talk them through, this is the current challenge and landscape, and this is what we're looking to do. I've had nothing but positive responses. So, in the area of, basically, I agree with what you're saying. This is an area of focus. It's an inevitable problem that everyone's going to need to solve for sooner or later. If you look at the trajectory of, SaaS workloads versus traditional application workloads, it's moving to the cloud, it's moving to B2B SaaS. Everyone out there is using these systems increasingly. You can't ignore them. You need to make sure that you're treating them as you would any other part of your attack surface. Perfect. And good conclusion. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you. This was great. It was great. I felt very educated. Lots to learn. Going viral. This is us. We'll be back. Famous.
Well, that was fun, and it was nice that James was able to join us. Who knows, he might actually come on to a few more episodes. I think he actually really likes the podcast. He's just in denial. So thank you, James, for bringing along and your insights of this, because I know you're really, really excited about this topic. If you would like more information, please head to our website. There is always episodes coming your way, so please do let us know if there's anything else you want to listen to. Feedback is always such great for us because it makes sure that we are putting the right content out there for you and future topics are being covered. In this podcast episode, I really hoped to demystify the complexity of cybersecurity in the context of software as a service. I really hope Brandon provided some value for you, some insights, some practical tips, and I hope we used enough real world examples to really highlight the importance of this and how navigating and the evolving digital landscape and using these SaaS platforms and keeping them secure can be a little bit of a minefield. So I do hope this has been a bit of food for thought. Maybe it's something that you're already considering, or if there's something else that you would like more information on how we can help you with this, I really hope this has been a starting point to your journey of making sure that you can secure all your SaaS platforms. Once again, thank you so much for joining us on the Core podcast. I hope you will tune in soon for the next episode and do connect. And if you think you have a story or a topic or something that you would like to share, please reach out to us. We have the Core podcast landing page where you can submit all your details there. Take care, have a good one, and I'll speak to you soon.